So the stats, JD, that you mentioned earlier with the 371,000 visitors per year, and that's just cars, not like individual people, but visitors coming in, visitor cars. That's such a huge amount of use. So it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. And we manage the grants that run heavy equipment. We manage the volunteers that go out for work parties. And we also raise funds for these areas too. So we have fundraisers every year and put all of that money and effort into maintaining those trails. And then we also have an interesting aspect where we can be a benefit to the land managers who don't get to interact with the public or can't update their website because it's like owned by some person in Washington. So it never gets updated. So we get to interact with the public and be kind of like a bridge between those areas. We're not land managers. We're not the federal government. We're not cops or anything like that. Like we're real riders. We're all out there riding.
I'm Brandon from the Rampart Range Motorized Management Committee, and you're watching The Trailhead.
My name is Ryan from Rampart Range Motorized Management Committee, and you're watching The Trailhead.
I'm Leah with the Rampart Range Motorized Management Committee, and you're watching the Trailhead Podcast.
Let it up, let it roar, feel the ground shake. Pedal down, dust flying, no time to waste. The trailhead's calling, engine power on a roll. This is where trails start and stories unfold. On the starlit skies, where the wild things roam. Every trail a journey, every Jeep a home. Meet me at the trailhead, where the wild ones run. The dust kicks high and the day's not done. With the road wide open, the turn in our soul. This is where trails start and our stories unfold.
Welcome back to the Trailhead. Today we're shifting gears to focus on one of Colorado's most iconic off-highway vehicle areas and my personal backyard, Rampart Range. If you've ever been out exploring on two wheels or ATV wheels, you've ridden the trails we're talking about today. Rampart Range is more than just a destination. It's a sprawling playground for outdoor enthusiasts, and the area covers about 146,000 acres, featuring over 611 miles of OHV trails, including approximately 100 miles of single track alone. It's home to 273 designated OHV routes in total and more than 160 OHV accessible campsites. Every year, Rampart Range attracts over 371,000 vehicles, with 92% of them there specifically for OHV use. But maintaining such an expansive network of trails doesn't happen without a dedicated group behind the scenes. And that's where the Rampart Range Motorized Management Committee, or RRMMC, comes in. And since 1972, this all-volunteer organization has dedicated countless hours of work, from clearing down trees to rerouting problematic trails and hosting community events. Today, we're talking to three key members of the organization who play roles in maintaining and advocating for this incredible trail system. Joining me today are Leah Hendricks, Brandon Harris, and Ryan Cadotte. We'll learn about their roles, their passion for these trails, and how they're making a difference on Rampart Range. Welcome to the show, everybody, again.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'm really happy to have you guys here. We're doing this again because I failed to hit the record button on the first time around. So I feel like my listeners can appreciate that I do that stuff on occasion. So we'll just we'll lead with that because that's where we're starting the show.
It's real.
Today.
It's authentic.
It's 100% authentic. Oh boy. All right. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. I really appreciate you coming on. Like I have mentioned now a couple times, Rampart Range is my backyard. I live, a few minutes away from Mount Herman Road. One of my first experiences in Colorado on a quote unquote off-road trail was Dakin Road, which goes off onto Rampart Range. And then in that area, I think a lot of people get their start there actually. And while we are talking mostly today about single track and ATV trails, you guys do dabble a little bit in the full size stuff, but this is mostly for that side of the house, which is just, again, the stats that I listed at the top. It's just an immense amount of trails and a lot of upkeep, I'm sure. So anyhow, with all that said, I want to kind of go around the table here and introduce everybody to the three people that are joining me today from the group. And I'm gonna start the other way around. We'll end with Leah this time. Ryan, we'll start with you since you have not gone yet, sir.
My time.
Please let us know where you're from, where you're at currently, and then how you got involved with the committee.
So I'm originally from Michigan, and I moved out here in Colorado in 2010 and currently live in the Aurora area. So coming from Michigan, we had practically no trails, no off-road stuff. There's a lot of lakes
Correct.
and there's state forests. So I didn't actually get into dirt biking until I got out here. And I actually ended up becoming part of RRMMC as I was just out at Rampart Range trying to figure things out for myself. And I ran into Brandon out there where he kind of just started inviting me to, I think, a work party or one of the events and just showing up to things a few years back. And now I'm officially member and part of this thing. And now I'm officially on the board as the secretary of RRMMC.
Okay.
So
you realize that description's not that far off from how people get involved in a cult, right?
I feel like that if you look at my garage and the stuff I have, like I have 3 chainsaws in my garage now. I've got chaps and all this trail clearing stuff that I'm like, I didn't know I was ever gonna need this.
Oh boy, yeah, it's funny how this stuff kind of takes over your life, isn't it?
It is. It's great though. It's so much fun and I love it.
That's awesome. Okay. All right. And what do you do for the group now, or what do you do for the committee as a whole?
I'm on the board of directors as the secretary. I do love to help with the poker run as well. That's like my favorite event of the year. We do it twice a year, so it's just a huge fun event with everyone getting out there.
Okay, very cool, awesome. All right, and then there's Brandon. Brandon, how you doing, man?
Doing good. So yeah, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, I did a lot of ATV riding. And I knew actually about Rampart Range before I even moved to Colorado. I moved here in 2018 and originally started riding up at Rampart on ATVs. And I was actually in more accidents, and they were all my fault, on an ATV in Rampart Range. Literally because of how the trails are shaped, they're kind of V'd out. And there was multiple times where, you take your eye off the trail for 1 second and you're on your side. And I realized pretty quick, I was like, man, everyone's riding dirt bikes here. Maybe I should get into dirt bikes. So it didn't take long for me to switch from ATVs to dirt bikes. But yeah, still plenty of good ATV riding out at the Rampart for sure. I am the treasurer. I've been the treasurer at Rampart Range for, 4 or 5 years now. Maybe I think this might be my 5th year actually. Now I think about it. I joined the committee originally in 2018. I was the ATV chair and then the treasurer. I'm also on the board of directors. I'm on the trails committee, and I am the poker run trail boss. So I come up with the route every year on the poker run.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like Rampart Range, like I said earlier, it's a bit of a gateway drug on a whole lot of levels, right? No matter what you're doing, whether it's full size or single track, I feel like it sounds like you spend more money these days probably on stuff than you did before you were going up there.
Absolutely. 100%. Without a doubt.
Smaller vehicles and still the bigger price tag, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Leah, welcome to the show. We're going to call you the ringleader here just because you're the person I've been talking to the most. And let's do this again with you two. Where are you from? How did you end up working with the committee as a whole?
Yeah. So I actually am from Texas, moved here when I was 9, and didn't get into dirt bikes until I was 30, like actually on my 30th birthday. And being in Denver, Rampart's the closest. Like JD, like you said, it's everybody's backyard. So it's under an hour from Denver, under an hour from Colorado Springs. So it sees all of that traffic. But I would frequently go ride there, and even though the trails for me were too hard as a beginner, for sure, the place is filled with bathrooms. Like every trailhead has a bathroom. So as a lady rider, that's particularly convenient, and I appreciated it. So it became one of my favorite places to ride, especially once I discovered the single track. And then I didn't get involved with the committee until I actually was out at Flat Rocks Trailhead and noticed up in the corner of the parking lot the Rampart Committee had their truck and trailer out. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go introduce myself. And I walk on over there, and it's just two guys there, two of our long timers. And I said, oh, what are you guys doing? A work party? And Jim, who's been with us for a very long time, he said, well, we were trying to do a work party, but only two of us showed up. It was just him and one other guy there for a trail work day. And I said, you know what? I can help you guys with that. I'd like to join and participate. So I've been a part of the Rampart Committee ever since. It's been about 9 years, and currently I am the communications subcommittee chair. So I manage things like our social media and website and internal communications. But it's a whole subcommittee. So we also have like incoming external communications that get managed, especially by these two guys. It's a robust operation just because there's so many people interested in Rampart. And then I also am the Trails Subcommittee Chair, which is our subcommittee that manages things like our grants, the applications, the implementation, and then things like new trails and building those. And we're all part of our saw crew also. We have a chainsaw sawyer crew for the Rampart. We clear hundreds of trees every year.
Nice. Well, and there's specific rules around operating a chainsaw in the forest, and I think that's where some people might not quite understand. You have to be licensed, or you have to have a permit. What is it?
It's nuanced. Okay, so if you're going to operate a chainsaw in an official capacity, so like at a work party or when there's Forest Service or BLM personnel around, or want to log your hours in an official capacity, your volunteer hours, then you have to have a Sawyer certification that's issued by the U.S. Forest Service, the S212, which is usually a 3-day course taught by the wildland firefighters. And so that is true. It's not a license, it's a certification. It lasts 3 years. You can get it, you can get recertified over and over. But if you are just a random Joe out there wanting to clear a trail, you totally can. Like that's not actually against any kind of rules. You just can't log those volunteer hours, which have a lot of credit. And I have a funny story about Brandon. Actually, I just thought of this one.
I like that Brandon is protesting it already. Yeah, go ahead.
Brandon actually, when the day that he converted to dirt bike instead of ATV, he showed up to our trail clearing day with his YZ instead of the ATV, and it was a surprise to all of us. Like, and we were all like, "What's happened?" And he's like, "I'm here. Got my chainsaw. I'm going to carry it in my backpack. Let's go."
It was actually a WR 450.
Oh yeah, it was a WR. That's right. Yeah. Now, but it was a WR at the beginning. So not a beginner bike by any means.
Oh God.
And there was snow on the ground still, and he was going to carry his chainsaw on his back, and we sent him out and said, "Go clear the single track," and he did.
I did.
Okay.
It was a long day, but it got done. Yeah.
Did you learn some things about yourself that day, Brandon?
Oh yeah. Big time. Those guys that helped me out, it was Ty, Corey, and Aaron Holton. They probably could have been done 2 hours before they were actually done if I wouldn't have come along. But they held in there with me, and they made sure I made it home. And yeah, I was very appreciative of those two guys that day.
So good.
Well, look, it all worked out. You ended up part of the cult. You're good.
That's right.
That's
awesome.
Right.
Well, that's fantastic. It dawns on me as we kind of went around the table here. One of the criticisms that I hear a lot of is that transplants especially don't respect trails, and they don't respect the off-road areas that we have here in Colorado. But every last one of us that are talking right now on this show are transplants here. And you guys obviously have a commitment to Rampart Range. This show has a commitment to making sure trails stay open and to trail advocacy as a whole. This is your transplants advocating for the trail usage. So don't tell us that we're not.
That's right.
100%.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
will say though that does come from a true place of ignorance, and I was that person. You know, you come here from the East Coast, there is no stay the trail. There is no,
Yeah.
you go make your own trail. It doesn't matter because in 3 weeks you can't see it anymore. So
Hmm.
it's absolutely a real thing that when people move here, they don't understand that if you go off trail, you can see that scar for 10 years, or maybe even longer.
Yeah.
But to your point, all you have to do is get on social media for one day and you can see people like us advocating for stay on the trail, and here's why.
It's getting better. I mean, it's better than when I started going up on, say, Gold Camp and Old Stage, in 2015, right after they reopened all that stuff. It's getting better. I just wanted to bring that up. It was so funny. I realized after we went around the table, I'm like, wow, every last one of us moved here from someplace else and then started advocating for these trails. And I think, when you come from a place like, out east, or in my case, I came from Chicago, where there isn't anything. So when you get out here, just like, I want to keep all of this for as long
Yes.
as I can possibly keep it. And of course, when I moved out here too, I think there's a lot of closures going on, and I was just knee deep in it, and I was very interested in getting involved in all of it. Anyhow, I apologize. Let's get back to the primary subject here. All right. So, who would like to talk about some of the kind of the core responsibilities that Rampart Range Motorized Committee does in terms of being a management committee for those trails?
The Rampart Range Motorized Management Committee does more than just manage the trails at Rampart Range. That's
Okay.
our primary focus. But we also manage the trails that are anywhere in the Pike San Isabel and also in the Royal Gorge Field Office. So we have
Oh,
volunteer agreements and cost share agreements with all of those land managers, the different ranger districts and everything, and can run dozers and any other heavy equipment and do volunteer work in those areas as well. But like I said, Rampart Range proper, the northern section, is our main focus. And that particular area has about 200 miles of trails, and they are very heavily used. So the stats, JD, that you mentioned earlier with the 371,000 visitors per year, and that's just
mhm.
cars, not like individual people,
Yeah.
but visitors coming in, visitor cars. That's such a huge amount of use. So it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. And we manage the grants that run heavy equipment. We manage the volunteers that go out for work parties. And we also raise funds for these areas too. So we have fundraisers every year and put all of that money and effort into maintaining those trails. And then we also have an interesting aspect where we can be a benefit to the land managers who don't get to interact with the public or can't update their website because it's like owned by some person in Washington. So it
Yeah.
never gets updated. So we get to interact with the public and be kind of like a bridge between those areas. We're not land managers. We're not the federal government. We're not cops or anything like that. Like we're real riders. We're all out there riding. And so we can interact with the public in a different and unique way that is maybe a little more relevant to them.
Perfect. I think that's the best way for any kind of organization's leadership to be involved, just on a ground level.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay. You do more work with the Forest Service or BLM?
Yeah, we do indeed do more work with the Forest Service. I would say, I don't know, Brandon, we did a stat for the percentage actually for like grants and volunteer hours. It's like 70, 75, I think, is towards the Forest Service.
I'd
Okay.
say, but in terms of our time commitment, it's over the last couple of years, it's actually evened out a little bit. Certainly, dollar value wise, that's why she kind of poked me. I'm the treasurer, right? So she's like, Brandon, what do you think dollar value wise? Yeah, it's definitely 2/3 or more for service. However, I'd say over the last couple of years, from a time commitment, the BLM's actually been stepping up quite a bit in terms of, I wouldn't say 50-50, but 60-40 BLM for
Okay.
service. Yeah.
Do those agencies typically come to you with projects, or do you find yourselves bringing projects to them more often?
Definitely a
Just
combination.
yeah.
Okay.
This year they just came to us with a project. We just helped them put in a little bit of a loop for camping down at Penrose. You'll see a little loop there for campers in the near future. They came to us with that. So I would say, and that's a good point. BLM usually comes to us we usually go to the Forest Service. If that,
Yeah.
I'd say that's a good way to categorize that.
And sometimes the other way around. I mean, like our planning grant, for example, we have a pile of, we have, I think, 8 trails on there. One of them is a net new trail that the Forest Service actually is asking for. So that was them coming to us to ask for that. And then the others are trails that are really old and in bad shape, and pushing equipment on them is not getting the job done. They need to be rerouted. So those trails are ones that we identified together in collaboration with the Forest Service.
I imagine that, yeah, if you're going to reroute a trail, that requires a whole lot of updating of a whole lot of different things and
Yes.
environmental impacts and everything. Yeah.
all of the NEPA study that goes along with such a thing.
How long do those usually take for you guys to do? I mean, so let's say the Forest Service comes to you and says, let's put a new trail in because we want to connect this piece to this piece over here. How long does that whole process take them from start to, say, ribbon cutting?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can take 3 years, 2 maybe, or it can take 20 years. It depends on what is needed and how big the project is. If it's not a huge project and the environmental analysis is light enough that it can be done with like a categorical exclusion or something small, then it can happen much quicker. If all of the wildlife folks and all of the archaeologists and all of the ologists that are involved in the process, if they are on board and it goes really quick, then maybe in 2 years we can cut a ribbon.
Okay.
If it's big, a long trail, requires a lot of NEPA analysis, sometimes even the most like extensive kind, that in and of itself can take years. And then there's a lot of back and forth as well.
Okay.
Of course, getting the funding for it too can take some time.
Let me just add a minute to what Leah said. She said, CE can take 2 to 3 years. We have a really good relationship with the South Platte Ranger District, and I think CEs can actually be much, much quicker than that. I think we've seen them turn around in weeks, really. Scope of the reroute, but we've seen them move really quickly.
Yeah, but that would be just that aspect of it. There's still like the planning, the scoping, the money, getting the funds for it. I would say 2 years would be best case scenario. But Brandon's right. If the categorical exclusion is possible and the land manager is amenable to the solution, a couple weeks for that part.
Nice. So we had all these closures going on, and we weren't getting anywhere, right? You just hear closure. And in the last year or two, it has started to stem that tide a little bit, and it's become a little bit more about, those of us in the OHV community pushing back on closures and starting to even get new trails here and there, a few miles here, a few miles there. And just a few years ago, that kind of progress would have been unthinkable. And that's kind of why I asked that question, is because I'm interested to know at a core level, because I'm really hoping that that's something that we have to contend with in the near future is a lot more of that and doing a lot more of those cutting new trails, whether they're single track or full size.
Yeah. I mean, I also kind of want to mention that even during that time when we were seeing so many closures, like closures on the Pike National Forest, the full size routes on the southern side, all routes in Moab, all over Utah, like seeing those closures, even during that time, Rampart Range was still building trails. We've been building new trails on the Rampart since 2006. So ongoing for a significant amount of time, but
that's amazing.
It is amazing, right? Like we built a new trail last year. And there are other parts of the state that are doing the same thing, like out on the western slope in Bangs Canyon. There's a new trail that opened last year. There's 2 new trails that are going to open this year. So it is possible, but it takes like this recipe of collaboration and advocacy and like a good relationship with the land manager for sure.
And that's awesome to hear. I mean, with 371,000, and again, that's vehicles, right? It's not people. That's just vehicles. So if you got a car full of, people, that's, multiply that times 3 or 4. It's just, when I saw you guys post that number, it was stunning, right? It was one of those numbers, because if you're unfamiliar, if you're just listening to this and you're not from Colorado, Rampart Range is a 60-mile road that runs from Sedalia to Garden of the Gods. And you would just not expect that a 60-mile stretch of road like that would garner that many people in 1 year.
Well, for sure, the road isn't what garners that many people, right? The road does
Right.
garner people, but it's all of the 200 miles of trails on either side of the road. That's where
Yeah.
the action is happening.
Well, because you never see all those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What'd you
they're
say,
out on the
Brandon?
trail.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, once you get on the washboards, you'd think there was that many cars on that.
It definitely feels like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just brutal in the kidneys. Like I said, it's nice to see the tide change a little bit on that, for as a whole. But it's great to hear that you guys have been just adding new stuff to it, and it makes sense with the amount of traffic that it gets. It's so close to the populated area that it sees so much traffic. And I failed to ask this question: how many people are on the committee as a whole?
That's a great question. We have, Ryan, 59 members, active members. We differentiate, like our active members is, Ryan, you might have to help me out here. What are the parameters for active membership? 3 events?
I think it's 2 events.
Yeah.
No,
2
3.
events.
It's 3.
Is
Really?
it 3? I don't know.
You actually have to.
We're very strict on rules.
I can see this.
Active membership requires active participation. So it's not just like sending in $35 and getting like a card or a sticker. It's actual participation in the work that we do. And we're at about 50.
That's all right. That's still a lot of work for 50 people.
Yeah,
So,
but we have a solid crew and we break things up into subcommittees to kind of spread the work around.
I would say that doesn't include a lot of the folks that show up to our work parties, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a much broader group of folks and pool of people that show up to our work parties beyond those 60 people.
Right.
I mean, if I had to guess, it's probably hundreds of people that show up every year to these events.
And mostly dirt bikers, but we get ATV riders. We even have the turkey hunter.
The turkey hunter guy, he comes like every work party. He's great. I love Tyler. He has a Rivian. He's a nice guy, and he always just wants to help us out. But he doesn't even have an OHV.
Yet. We're still working on him. He was out there turkey hunting last year in the spring, like that first turkey hunting season. And it was mud season for the dirt bikes and ATVs, so closed to motorized use. So he was out there hunting and he keeps hearing dirt bikes and he was mad. He was like, what is going on? So he actually takes it upon himself to block these OHVs that were on the trails. And he's single-handedly pulling logs, deadfall, into the trail. Now, pulling it into the trail. So then actually 2 of our rangers came upon him doing this and they were like, you can't do that. And he was like, no, I'm trying to block these OHVs. They're not supposed to be here. And the rangers said, actually, you're probably just hearing the Rampart Committee. They're out here clearing the trails to get it open so that we can try and open next week. So don't drag the trees. And if you want to help, come to their work party next weekend. So he actually came to the work party and he came to all of our work parties ever since and the post ones. Yeah.
He's a nice guy. Great guy.
He is a nice guy, and he doesn't have an OHV yet, but he did write a letter of support for our grants last year, our grant applications.
That's amazing. I mean, especially if you're going to be out there in it. What was like the largest trail project you guys had last year?
Well, wrapping up the Enduro Skills area, I would say.
The Enduro Skills.
That was a big push to get that one done. Yeah.
What is that for you guys?
Yeah, this is a multi-year project, actually. We started thinking about it in like 2017 and applied for 2 rounds of grant funding for it. But this actually ties into the closures on the Pike National Forest, the full-size trails. The reason that those were closed was part of this like larger lawsuit that happened. And then the settlement agreement from that required the full analysis. And in the process of that, which took a very long time, way a long time, our forest supervisor was reluctant to sign off on projects, categorical exclusion or otherwise. And so we had this project that was funded by the state and ready to be completed. We had a contractor lined up. We had everything scoped out. Our ranger district was on board, super stoked for it. And we couldn't actually break ground because of that lawsuit. So that delayed that. This Enduro Skills training area, which is course in the woods for people to go out and practice dirt bike skills on was it took a lot longer than it should have because of that. And last year we actually got to get it soft launched, opened. So very exciting. That's probably our biggest. We had a trail
Very
though
nice.
too. Mm-hmm.
Which trail?
Yeah, there's new 770.
Yeah, we had a bailout on 770. The Turtle Mountain bailout was open last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 770J.
I was going to say that new section is 770 at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if that was last year or the year before.
It was last year. Yep.
Yeah.
Plus the stuff down at Penrose.
3 trails down at Penrose opened. Yeah, 3. They're about a mile each. Really fun, techie little single tracks. And then we also had some heavy reroutes that we got done last year too.
Is most of the work you guys do for trail maintenance, does it require handwork or some sort of heavy machinery, even if it's a small little kind of excavator or some kind that's getting pushed through a trail?
Yeah, contractor work, definitely heavy machinery. They do a small percentage of the work that they do would require handwork. Volunteers, though, we're all handwork, whether it's Pulaskis or chainsaws or shovels or whatever.
Okay, because I'm going to show some video here of just folks just cutting, like they're just hacking away at roots to put trails in and get them in there. So it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of physical work, right? Because
I think that clip that you're talking about is 770.
Is it?
Single track, and then like finishing work. So that's a combination. Like the mini excavator goes through and sets the trail bench, like the base of it. And then the hand crew goes in, and there's a lot of our work parties consist of this, goes in and sets the slope on the backside and then off the downside so that it sheds water properly, just like in a line. But a little mini excavator or dozer is going to miss some of those roots, and we got to hack at them with Pulaskis.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Like,
got to do what you got to do. Yeah.
You're cutting dirt. So awesome. Obviously, Rampart needs a whole lot of attention just because of the amount of people that it gets there. I know that driving around in it, especially in certain parts of it, just with a full size vehicle, that the dirt, it's a little bit different than some other parts. It's obviously different than like Moab terrain or anything like that. What kind of stuff do you guys run into in terms of, like, you kind of alluded there, like drainage issues and stuff like that? Do you guys have any larger issues like that, especially in those smaller trails?
Yeah, I can answer that one, or maybe we each answer a piece of it. So obviously we see challenges because of heavy use. Just the sheer volume of people riding at Rampart is so high. But we also have really weird soil. Like, it's not really soil. It's decomposed granite with a little bit of feldspar. It's gravel. A lot of people
it's gravel.
Litter. It is its own unique substance. But it actually is so unique that it was used to solve a murder case. This is actually a true story. There was a murder that happened up on the Rampart, and the case was solved. There's a blog about it on our website. The case was solved because the tires for the getaway vehicle had the telltale feldspar and decomposed granite from Rampart on it.
Oh my
Wild,
God,
right?
That's amazing. That's so amazing. That's hilarious. All right. I'll link to that in the show notes.
I got another story about the soil. So we're at a poker run, right? And I'm working a checkpoint. And no joke, somebody came up to the checkpoint and they said, "Wow, how long did it take you guys to put all that sand on the trail?" And I thought he was joking. I was like, "Yeah, haha." He's like, "No, really? Like, how long did that take you guys?" And I'm like, "That's natural, buddy. That's yeah." So it's very sand-esque. Yeah, it looks like sand.
Those poker run days, it just gets so dusty out there too. It's just a big dust storm of craziness. It's awesome.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, it's awesome, he says. How much effort is there just on trail maintenance versus doing things like opening new trails and, kind of the physical work effort that goes into that?
That's a great question. I think we can talk about like the 3 grants that we did apply for during this current grant cycle last year. So we had 3 grants, and only one of them was for trail planning. And then within that trail planning, a lot of it is heavy reroutes and then 1 net new trail. So the heavy reroutes will be like an increase in mileage, but with the intent of like making the trails more sustainable. And the rest is for maintenance. Just maintaining the sheer volume of trails that we have. We want more new trails, of course, but we got to take care of what we have first.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah, everybody's using them that much. You've got to, that's where the major effort has to go into, especially if you want to go to the Forest Service or the BLM and say, hey, we haven't been maintaining these trails, but let's open some new ones. I get it.
That's a really good, and we've actually had those comments on grant applications before that said, hey, we're already spending so much on maintenance. What makes you think that new trails is a good idea? And our rebuttal to that is, yeah, but look how good we're doing at managing all of the trails that we have. Right. So
yeah, we
think we do a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
It sounds like and you guys, well, you make a good case for it too. I mean, just the sheer volume of, we're talking volunteer hours and the amount of work that you guys are putting in. And there's tangible things. If you guys are opening new trails on a regular basis, if you're keeping those trails open, people aren't dumping their bikes and stuff on these trails because they're running into, insurmountable obstacles, then the maintenance is happening there and they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to pay you guys. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's just, sometimes you have to convince them that we're willing as a group to continue doing that work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pivot to you, Ryan, because I got a good pivot question for you here. How do you keep everybody motivated to do this stuff? You kind of talked about the poker runs and stuff. What do you guys use that to generate money, I assume, but also just to kind of keep people motivated to come out, right?
Both of those for the poker run. Yeah, it's a good, I mean, the poker run's really what kind of showed me a lot of what RRMMC was doing more, because I joined the poker run before I was in RRMMC. My first one, I think, was in 2018 or 2019, and I was like, wow, this is just crazy. So yeah, it's a great fundraiser for us. I mean, it does a moderate amount of fundraising for us, but I think the bigger thing is there's 200-300 riders out there. And it's just so cool to go in there and see these bikes lined up along the side of the road for 150 yards of just dirt bikes. People just out there to have a good day. Like, there's no race going on. It's like, you're going to get some free food. You're going to ride your bikes with your friends for a day. That's a good day.
So, for the uninitiated, what is a poker run, especially in your guys' context?
So in our context, it's a pre-mapped route going through the Rampart Range Trail system. And we have 5 checkpoints generally. Each checkpoint, really, you just check off that you've made it to the checkpoint, and that kind of allows you to draw cards at the end. You play your cards against everyone else, and you have a bunch of prizes and things. Some years we've had some really good prizes, like dirt bikes and things like that. So it can be a really neat day. Last year, I had my buddy sign up. It was his first year going. He won like 2 separate things, like a pair of goggles and some other hand warmers for his bike, and he was like, I didn't think I was going to get anything. So it's just a fun event, and yeah, I really do enjoy that one just because of how much it brings bikers out, and it's a nice day, and we get to stay the trails out there. We're trying to educate people because it gets a little crazy when you have 400 additional people out on the trails, so it's great for that.
It's always good to get any opportunity to, and I hesitate to use the word preach, but to kind of preach the good word about staying the trail and stuff like that to people, that's the perfect opportunity to do so, because it's a non-confrontational environment and everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, and it's hard to do because I don't know, it's so unique out here with our trail system and how to take care of it, like we kind of hinted at and talked about. Like, I come from Michigan. I'm a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. I leave no trace as part of that learning it. But even still, coming out here, it's very different on how to maintain things and how to make sure with this many people coming out to use it.
Yeah. And yeah, if you're listening and you're not from Colorado, or even if you are from Colorado and you don't know, these in Colorado, you can't necessarily just drive wherever you want to. It's definitely not an open OHV area. I think there might be a couple in the state, but even that I'm not sure of. But in general, you can't. And there's reasons for that. Part of it is environmental. Part of it is the trails themselves, because they just keep getting larger and larger and larger rated trail systems, and it becomes a hot mess real fast. And it's really important. And I don't know if we talked about it in the failed start to the show or not, but we kind of mentioned the fact that, when you come from other places like, out east, you don't necessarily know that it's much more fragile here than it is other places. Every spring I now post a video that is essentially me telling people not to, tear through mud puddles, because when you do that here, it splashes on the vegetation. Then there's not enough rain to wash it off. It kills the vegetation and it causes it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If you're coming to Colorado and you're wondering why we keep talking about, why Stay the Trail is so important here, it's because of those things. And then when land managers when we were talking about some of those closures, a lot of the stuff that they cited were people going off trail and that's, I think that's been kind of the push the last few years, really, to just educate folks on why it's important. And it's super important here. So
we had an interesting kid out for one of our work parties last year. Last year we closed over 40 illegal hill climbs that were off trail, which is way above average on the Rampart, like right off of the trail, just blatant hill climbs right there, which is it puts the whole trail network at risk, of course, when we have those, because somebody that is like a special interest group may come out and see it and say, oh, look, they can't maintain these trails. Everybody's going off trail, so we should close the whole thing. And it also makes it harder for us to get new trails. So we wanted to nip that in the bud and got out there to close all of them down. And at one of the work parties, we had a kid who was like, I don't know, 18 or 19 out with us on one of the hill climb closures. And I was trying to do like this PR thing. So I was like videoing all of them talking about why it's bad. And this kid said, do you want to know the truth? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. He said, all of my friends know to stay the trail. We grew up with Stay the Trail and that messaging. It's you old people that are the problem. And I was like, oh, you call me old?
Ouch. Ouch, though. You old people. What do you mean, you old people?
But I loved that message that he has heard Stay the Trail messaging, and he holds on to that, and so do his friends, and they know. But reaching the older audience is a different kind of challenge that we all get to participate in now.
Yeah, it's amazing to me for people that like to call the younger generation entitled.
Right.
I feel like it's the other way around when it comes to trails and where you're supposed to be and where you're not supposed to be. That's really funny that you bring that up. That's hilarious. Wow. No, it's at least it's permeating to the younger generation. Yeah. So I'll take it. We'll get there. We'll get there. It's getting better. So what do you guys got coming up then in terms of, this summer in terms of maintenance? And we'll start on the maintenance side of stuff. What do you guys, anything big projects that you got planned? I mean, obviously if you've started the enduro thing, you're going to finish it this year.
Just really excited for the enduro skills area, because it's just a really cool, it's so unique. We don't have anything like that out here in the Front Range. It's got log jumps, big rocks you can go up on, and it's in a small kind of confined area where you can be 150 yards from your vehicle, where if you break your bike, okay, you're close. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Some of the stuff is a little gnarly, but it's really neat to see that happening on public lands. That's for us to use and us to take care of. It's just,
I think any time where you can have a place where people can go and kind of perfect their skills, right? Because if you can perfect your skills in a smaller course like that, you're likely to do less damage when you take it out to the larger trails.
100%. Yeah. Less wheel spin before obstacles, which causes big ruts on our trails when people do that. But
Yep.
So
I'm sorry, Brandon, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the big one. And then in terms of just regular maintenance, no other big projects that I'm aware of, but every spring you never know what you're going to run into. Just last spring there was this massive rock collapse on a trail that we had to take care of. So yeah, really we won't know until we get out there in a couple weeks and see what the winter has brought us.
Yeah, we're recording this kind of at the beginning of April here. And when do you guys typically get out on the trails and start doing that kind of investigation to see what kind of work you can have in front of you?
At the time of this recording, we're under our mud season, our seasonal closure. Right. So closed to motorized use of all kinds. And as we get closer to the Forest Service being ready to open that, we'll be getting out there clearing deadfall and scouting out projects, seeing if there's any of that rock fall. And also sometimes when we have a lot of like water drainage, that can wreck the trails. Like a heavy rain can cause damage
Yeah.
to the trails. So we'll be scoping that not this weekend, maybe next weekend. We'll be getting out there.
Okay. Nice. All right. And yeah, real quick, and you guys don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to smile and nod. You can just blank face it if you want to. But for those of you out there who are living in Colorado and light up the Facebook page with the rude comments about the temporary mud closures that happen every single year and that are not anything new, I'm looking at you, old Facebookers, and
Yep.
honestly, it's not tyranny. It's just trail maintenance. It's trying to keep the trails in some sort of a decent condition so that we can all use them. There's mud closures for single track. There's mud closures for full size. We're all impacted by it. You just gotta wait. Just wait a couple weeks. It'll dry out. Everybody, then you can enjoy it all season, and you don't have to worry about it. And then our MC doesn't have to do as much work to keep those trails in condition that you guys can keep riding on them.
We also don't get to decide when it opens or closes. And you wouldn't believe some of the emails that we receive. Should we read them that email? Let me see if I can find it.
No.
Okay.
I don't know if that was appropriate.
We'll read it off the air.
We receive very inappropriate emails every year during mud season because people are confused. They think we're in charge of the closures and openings. We're not. We're not the federal government. We're in charge of the maintenance. And the Forest Service decides when the trails should be closed for mud season and when they should open back up. And they make those decisions based on trying to maintain the resources, which is our OHV trails. We'd like to keep them. I'd rather have them closed for a couple weeks and get to ride them the rest of the year.
And I don't know what it is about the trails, but there's certainly, so last year, a lot of the comments we got were, hey, the trails are in great shape. Why are they still closed for mud season? And the reality is, yeah, the trails might be in great shape, but the road, it's actually Rampart Range Road, and it's right around the Devil's Head area, gets a really thick layer of ice on it, and it takes forever for that ice to melt, and it stays wet, muddy, and slippery and just nasty for a lot longer than the trails do. So if you're out there and you think, hey, the trails are in great shape, why aren't they open yet? It's really because the Rampart Range Road itself is still very muddy. And you think about how much more traffic the road gets and how fast that could become a problem. So the Forest Service is just doing the best they can.
And they only have they only have enough staff they barely have enough staff to keep up with Facebook posts, right? Let alone opening and closing multiple gates, up and down Rampart Range. The amount of traffic that road gets alone is just, you got to be cognizant of it. And Devil's Head is just really, really popular for a lot of people. Is that your guys' primary source of fundraising as a whole, or the poker runs, or is it just kind of people?
That's our biggest fundraiser for sure. And we do two a year. We also, this year we aren't having an Awesome Autumn fundraiser, but we have often in the past, which is like a dual sport ride. And then we also do grants through Colorado Parks and Wildlife OHV Fund. So all of the stickers that people buy, $25.25, that goes into a pool of funds that land managers and clubs and really any nonprofit can apply for funds from. So we apply for grants to maintain and build new trails from that pool of money. We do that every year and have since the program was opened up. Actually, some of our Rampart committee members were part of CoveCo and the formation of getting the OHV sticker program started back in the day.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about that, the full-size groups that use some of those funds to help keep and maintain those trails too. Because in the last few years, there's been a push to, convert some of those roads, Forest Service roads. Because a lot of what full-size folks, when you're driving out there here off of Rampart Range, the majority of the time you're just driving on a Forest Service road. It's not an official trail. It's not like a, Hackett Gulch is considered a trail. It's not considered a county road anymore. It's not considered a forest road anymore. And, it changes the way you can get money from that grant pool then to maintain those trails. And they're popular trails, Flake Road, which is mini Moab, and that area. It's, that area is all trails now as of this year. And that means now they can actually spend some money to kind of maintain it. Right. And if you've ever been through there in that giant mud pit, that just seems to
Yes.
get deeper every year, and it's going to start
Yes.
swallowing BMWs pretty soon. So now we can actually start to get some stuff done out there. So
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're a full size or a single track. Get that $25.25
Absolutely.
sticker for your vehicle.
That is a small price to pay for a year of fund. $25.25.
Yeah, for real though.
And the
It's
25
less.
cents goes to search and rescue. So
Yeah, there you go. It's not even. It's less than a half a tank of gas. So
yes.
it's full size. Really, it may be a tank of gas or two for you guys. I don't know exactly total. But for a full
Yeah.
size, it's less than half a tank of gas. Get your sticker.
Yeah, dirt bike gas, that's a lot cheaper. And they're fuel
Yeah,
efficient.
I will allegedly though. I would question Brandon though on if he spends less money now than he did on an ATV.
No, definitely not. Way
Yeah, okay,
more
there it is.
now. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sure there's a lot of mitigating factors in that, but I just wanted to double check. Okay.
I go through about 3 pipes a year. 2 stores.
See, there it is. It's all trade-offs, guys. It's all trade-offs.
Yeah.
We're all just dealing with different things to drain our wallets.
Independence Trail will do that to your 2-stroke pipe.
It's the main reason I've avoided that one.
It's the main reason. Oh wow! Is that well? That's a good sidetrack. Is that like the hardest one out there, or how many? What's the hardest trail that's out there in terms of single track?
Rampart?
Yeah.
Well, Independence is down at Penrose.
Yeah.
But the hardest trail at Rampart, 683.
I agree. Yeah.
It's really short, and if you go down it, it's really easy. But if you come up it, there's 2 rock gardens that'll get you pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Some would argue 693. Back on the backside, those back loops have some sketchy sections.
Is that Bear Mountain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bear Mountain's up there too. Yeah, that's probably
679B has a sketchy loop, the rock loop on there.
The rock loop, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, crashed really hard, the rock loop.
Listen, that's subjective. We're asking the hardest trail at Rampart, not whether or not we think it's hard. Because that's totally subjective. Like, you guys, I don't know how I told you this, but the first time I rode at Rampart, I was on the beginner trail, which is called Beginner Trail 627. I can confirm it is not appropriate for beginners. As a beginner, he sat on the side of the trail crying, "This is not a beginner trail." So it's all relative, right?
Yeah, it usually is.
Rampart is an interesting place to ride because there's really no super beginner trails, as Leah just pointed out, and there really is no super expert trails either. So it's a whole bunch of intermediate trails is how I would describe it.
We do have Lightfoot Sloop, which is also not a beginner trail, but acts as like an introduction to the trail system. So this is actually right next to the Enduro Skills training area and right next to the Kiddie Corral. So we have like a whole educational center right there. And the Lightfoot Sloop is a 1 mile trail, and it's a one-way trail. It's our only one-way trail, actually. Everything else is 2-way. And it's a nice little, like, okay, here's what some rocks at Rampart look like. Here's what a bridge at Rampart looks like. Here's what some climbing turns would look like, just to get people acquainted before they go out into the wild.
As you can tell, I've got some kids. One of my goals, and we'll see if it gets done. I don't know if it's going to get done or not, but we'll see. But I actually have a personal goal to make Lightfoot's Loop a little bit easier. In my opinion, it's too hard to be calling it Lightfoot's Loop. And, you can't take a 5 or a 6 or even maybe some 8 and 10-year-olds you could take on there. But I would like go ahead.
I took an adult on there that broke her shoulder on that trail. Like, it is not a beginner trail.
Exactly.
We don't feel it as a beginner trail. I think actually the solution is to make a beginner trail, right?
Beginner trail, yeah. So we either make Lightfoot's Loop easier or make an actual beginner trail.
An actual beginner trail, true, like easy, real green, like greener than green.
Yep. There's not
and doing it from scratch would allow you to actually make that a thing without ticking anybody off that you destroyed. Oh, you destroyed my favorite trail because you leveled it. Yeah. I can imagine you get emails on that one too.
Any reroute, yeah, any change.
Any reroute.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I can only
we
imagine.
we get emails and comments on everything. It is truly impossible to make everyone happy. If we
Yeah.
if we spend time and money knocking down braking bumps, then we get complaints and applause. If we don't, then we get complaints and applause. So
Yeah.
we can't make everyone happy. Impossible.
No, that's where you just got to make, an educated decision as the person who's, kind of been entrusted to do this stuff, right?
That's right. What's the priority for
and
real?
sometimes you just got to take the spears that go with just doing this stuff. And it sucks. It really sucks sometimes because, like you guys are out there doing the hard work, right? You're putting in this is all volunteer work, guys. Like these guys are not getting paid to do this work. They're not getting paid to write grants. They're not, grant proposals. They're not getting paid to moderate Facebook comments, people upset about mud closures because you're just posting that it's a mud closure, just trying to tell people so they don't waste a drive to the trailhead.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me sometimes that people are more willing to complain sometimes than just help. And so just be a little nicer, folks. They're out there. They're trying to help.
Thanks, JB. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, I come from a place of I've been reposting your guys' mud closure notices for the last, 10 years that I've been here. And it just amazes me every year that it continues to get that kind of a pushback. It's just, I don't understand. I moved here and I looked around, I'm like, oh, there's been mud closures here for as long as you can remember. I'm like, that's not a big surprise for me. Okay. I'll see you in June, but that's apparently a big deal for some folks and they just don't quite understand it. So
I don't want the trails closed either, man. Okay. I want to be out there too. Right. It is, it's going to be 60 this week. It's going to be delightful. And I really would love to be out there in it, but I can't get up Dakin Road right now. And that's just the way it is.
Right now. But you know what? There's a lot of other places in Colorado that you can still ride right now. And
there's tons of places to go.
Yeah. Stay the Trail has a great resource on its website. So does the Trails Preservation Alliance, both. You can go on there and see all of the riding areas in the whole state.
Yep.
Plenty.
Yep. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're driving. There's resources to find places that are open this time of year. There's plenty of places down south that are open, especially because they don't get as much snow like by the Lake George area and stuff like that. So yeah, you can find it. Sometimes it means in the winter, you got to drive a little bit further to get to it. Sorry. Right. Just be glad that for, the other 8 to 9 months out of the year, it's your backyard and you can just drive up to it and go from there.
It's right there. It's right nearby. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm starting to feel like I've taken up enough of your guys' time. I want to go around the table a little bit here, though, make sure we've covered all the important stuff for everybody. Do we have anything else that we need to hit in terms of events that you guys want to talk about coming up here? And you got some work parties coming up all summer, right?
All spring, summer, and fall. Once or twice a month, we'll have a work party. You can see those on our website, on our Facebook, on our Instagram. We keep it all updated.
Okay, and that's rampartrange.org.
That's right.
Let's see here. All right, good deal. And I'm going to go around the table here then with one more question for everybody. Let me see here. I'm going to start with Brandon because everybody else has had to go first except him today. So it's going to be Brandon. Brandon, if you had to do if you had one change that you could implement in Rampart Range, shortening the mud closure season or whatever it was that you wanted to have done for the as a whole, what would you like to see in Rampart?
Man, we kind of just hit on it. It would absolutely be some true beginner trails. As we mentioned before, there's a lot of intermediate stuff, not really a lot of advanced. So I'd actually like to do both ends, right? I'd like to see more beginner trails, but I'd also like to see some really hard trails for the experts. The hard stuff is challenging at Rampart because of the soil types and whatever. But if I had a goal, that would be it.
Okay, I like that. Making it more accessible, especially as the sport, starts to grow as a whole, doing the enduro sports thing that you guys are talking about and adding a beginner trail, like those are huge things to people who are just getting out there, right? If you don't want to be at the side of the trail crying, this is not a beginner trail. You want to enjoy your first time out because you want to go back out and do it again. And you want people who are new to the sport to come out and do it again. Ryan, what about you, man?
I mean, I really got to go with the beginner trail too. Because literally the last time I was out at with Loop, I had a guy with 6 and 8-year-old kids, and he was like, "Man, this trail's too hard."
Okay.
And my first time out there, I struggled on the beginner trail as well. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like these issues kind of end up bubbling to the surface, and they tend to become everybody's front runner at some point.
Outside of that, I love Rampart Range. I think it's a
Yeah.
wonderful riding area, and I just like to enhance like the knowledge of it and taking care of it. Like that's my only other goal as far as the area. Like more trails we can get is always awesome, but I like the way it is right now too. It's a beautiful pine forest with beautiful trails.
It's an amazing place to go be. Leah, go ahead.
Beginner trail for me also. And that's been
Okay.
a goal for quite some time. I wanted that like enduro skills training area next beginner trail.
Okay.
Now, I mean, the story I told you guys about my first time at Rampart sitting on the side of the trail crying, that's true. And I wasn't just crying, I was like mad. I was like, I felt like I had been misled because it was called beginner trail. And now, of course, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
over 10 years later since that day that I sat on the side of the trail and cried. And I've ridden all of the trails there, both directions, day, night, all of it. Like I can do it all in my sleep. But when I was truly a beginner, there was nothing there for me. And that's a gap that we really have. I'd love to see really hard stuff like Brandon mentioned. I would love to see that there, but I'm not sure we'd ever get that one past the land managers and also search and rescue, because we're less than an hour from Denver and less than an hour from Colorado Springs, and they're up there every week already as it is rescuing.
I do see that helicopter fly through the area on a regular basis. So yes, I get that part too. But on the same breath, if you give people those resources to kind of step up, and I think anybody in the full size arena would tell you the same thing. We all have stories of going out the first time and, oh, this trail is perfect for you. You'll be fine on it. It's a 2 out of 10. You'll be great. And you get out there and your vehicle's, at a 40-degree angle. And you're like, how the hell did I end up in this situation? And because somebody's, definition of easier versus somebody else's is different. And there's not always a good direction on what's beginner and what isn't. And if you guys are missing that beginner piece, then I understand why that's such an important, piece right now, because that means there's new people that are coming out and getting turned away from it because they're not finding something for them to just kind of cut their teeth on and get used to it first. I would love to have you all back, and we can bring some more folks on if you want.
Yes.
Have some other folks talk about their stories, maybe kind of later in the summer after we've had a few months of chaos and dust up there, and see what's going on. It's awesome. Okay. Well, if you're out there listening and you want to support the RRMMC, you can visit them at rampartrange.org to find out how to volunteer or donate. You can also follow them on Instagram, Facebook for all the updates and upcoming events. Again, be nice. They're just relaying this information, folks. They're just trying to help you. They're trying to help us. They're trying to you don't want to drive to the trailhead and find it closed. So just pay attention to the posts. So anyway, thanks for riding along with us on this episode, and thanks for letting us be a part of your off-road adventures. Safe travels on and off-road. As always, stay the trail, and we'll see you next time at the trailhead. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, JD.
Thanks, JD.
Guys, I'm really sorry. I hit stop to fix Brandon's issue, and I never hit record again.
Amazing.
Oh man, I felt like it was going great too.
Am I going to have to redo the bathroom story? That was like impromptu. I can't believe that.
I feel terrible. Oh my God.
It's good. I forgot to say what I do for the committee, like Brandon just did. I was like, oh.
That's okay. All right.
We'll get it right the second time.
That was a dry run.
Yeah. Well, it was a dry run. I'm just like, why is Ryan not showing that he's uploading? And I'm just like, no one's showing that they're uploading because I'm not recording right now and I'm a big stupid idiot. Oh my gosh. All right. I apologize, guys. That is why though I set that to record automatically when everybody starts coming in the room so I don't forget. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Let's try this again. I'm going to go back to my script here. Read this again. You guys get to listen to me BS again. All right.